Thank you for joining us for this episode of Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories. I am your host, Allison Preisinger-Heggins. Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories is a podcast exploring society, culture, and current events through conversation. We aspire to create an open, respectful, and equitable space where guests may feel free to share their truth and lived experiences. Our core values are rooted in community, connection, and personal development. Stories help us learn, relate, and grow. We are here to listen, to take notice. Thank you for being with us. I would like to acknowledge the land on which this episode was created. I would like to show gratitude to the traditional ancestral land of the Coast Salish people, including the Duwamish people past and present, recognizing that these names are not the original names of the people of these areas. I encourage listeners to research the land on which you live and are listening right now. Recognizing this is just the beginning. The more you explore, challenge, and learn, the more questions may arise, but this is how we grow and connect. Thank you for joining us for Take Notice. Before we get started with the episode, I wanted to mention this article that I came across recently about land acknowledgements. Since we have had a land acknowledgement as a part of our episodes since the beginning of Take Notice, I wanted to mention this article. It's called Your Land Acknowledgement is Not Enough. And I've always kind of felt that way as far as land acknowledgements are just a piece of a very large pie, I suppose, that needs to happen in order to make a shift in our culture and in how we treat others who have not been treated well since the beginning of white people being in this country. So in the article, it goes on to talk about how doing these brief land acknowledgements, having that moment and then moving on as if there's nothing else to discuss, there's just something lacking in that. It's not enough. And it's not to say that it's necessarily a bad thing to do, because I believe that it at least brings up the topic in people's brains, in my opinion, but I agree that it's not enough. We can't all fix it all, but we can all do our parts in educating ourselves and doing what we can. So the link to this article is in our link tree, which you can find on our social media pages, Instagram and Facebook. You can find us at Take Notice Podcast. And in our bios, you can find a link to our link tree, and it links to this article by Hyperallergenic. I was introduced to this article by Nicole at Anti-Racism Daily. So you can also go to Anti-Racism Daily and subscribe to their newsletter as well to get information like this article. It's very helpful to have it land in your inbox. So I definitely recommend subscribing to Anti-Racism Daily. I just wanted to mention that since we do have a land acknowledgement in the beginning of each of our episodes. In today's episode, I speak with Kelvin L. Weathers. He is a speaker, a life coach, educational consultant, and a mentor. He runs Weathers Enterprise and is an online sales consultant. He's also a co-author of a recent Amazon best-selling anthology entitled Still I Thrive, which he discusses a bit about in our conversation. We also discuss his family life growing up in Texas, mental health, his work mentoring young men in his community, and his drive to be of service to others. Thank you for being here, and please enjoy this episode with Kelvin Weathers. Welcome, Kelvin, to Take Notice. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Allison. I'm doing well. Doing well as can be during the pandemic.
Yeah. It's still raging, that's for sure. You're in Houston, is that right?
I'm in Houston, Texas. Yes, I'm in Houston, Texas.
Nice. I'm all the way over in Seattle. So we've got that time difference that we were sorting out ahead of time. And so that'd be why. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know some people who are speakers that are in Washington. They may be in Edmonds, Washington area. They're in that area. So I see them. They're like a mental health gentleman. I think he's in the Edmonds area.
Yeah, that's not far from me. I went to Edmonds Community College a long time ago, right out of high school. So I'm familiar.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. Nice. Yeah. Have you visited this area before?
I need to. I guess I need to do. I need to do so. I'm thinking about it. I never have.
Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe someday. It's beautiful up here. And I think I've only been to Texas by way of like a stopover on a flight or something.
Oh.
So I don't think I've officially been to Texas
Oh,
before.
wow.
So I need to go there.
Yeah, yeah. We definitely. Yes, definitely. That'd be great.
Did you grow up in that area or in Houston or Texas or?
Grew up in Houston. I'm the oldest of five. Grew up and now, pretty much matriculated in the Houston area. All my life, I've had a couple stops in Oklahoma and one other place for a little while, but been in Houston. That's where I grew up. That's near downtown or inner city, or not, middle class, in between inner city, middle class parts of Houston.
Oh, okay. Do you say you're the oldest of five or you're one of five?
I'm the oldest of five. I'm the oldest of five.
Nice. Do your siblings still live in that area too?
All of my siblings are still in the area, except for one is in San Antonio, Texas. Every other sibling is in the Houston area.
What did your parents do when you were growing up?
Well, my parents, they grew up, before they divorced at 9. My parents one was worked in the oil, retired from the oil Petrofina chemical company. Mm-hmm. And mom works, she's in home health care and does some other things now. Just kind of a blue collar. I'm a first generation college graduate, so neither of my parents got their college degree. They were good. They provided a lot, they did with the best they could. And then they helped me out with a lot of wisdom and knowledge and what they had. And just a work ethic, though. I mean, even though they a tremendous work ethic, tremendous pursuit of work and excellence that they instilled. And it's still instilled in all of us. Mm-hmm. They instilled in the two, me and my brother. We're my mother with my father. Me and my brother were the two children with my father.
Oh, okay. Okay,
and
so then
others were with another after.
Okay, gotcha. So you have a couple half siblings. Is that right?
Well, they're siblings. Yeah, they're siblings. They just came. They're just not with the same dad.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then you said you were 9 when your parents split. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So did they both stay in the area, and so you still saw them both, or how did that go for you?
Yeah, we saw them. I saw, see my mother, especially, Mother's Day just came. I mean, we see my mother quite often. They stayed in the Houston area, stayed in the Texas area. Mm-hmm. So that was a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Sometimes when a split happens, it can be difficult, even more difficult because somebody's super far away, but it's nice when you can still see everybody.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, so then you are the first generation college educated in your family. How did that go for you? What was the kind of trajectory from elementary, high school, and then what made you decide to pursue college?
Well, as I said, my mother is a tremendously gifted and giving lady, and that's the sense that I've been instilled by her, and was that to work and to achieve. And to do your best. And all of her, whether it was me, my brother, because a couple of my siblings, they're teachers. I mean, pretty much, well, everyone is a teacher. I could some consider me a teacher because I teach at church, but I don't teach in the public school system or teach in the high school system. But I consult with colleges and high schools, but I don't teach. But my mother, so how I project from elementary school, I went to elementary school that was in Houston, Peck Elementary. Then went to Ryan Middle School, and then high school. And even 1 year, I was held back 1 year. And so it was a drive in me to continue to finish high school and also finish. I went to community college, was working full time. And even when I got my degree, I was working full time. But it was just a sense of wanting to complete what you started and what I started. So, and that's all, my siblings, they all, all 4 of us, except for I have one brother who's autistic. But all four, whether my sister, my brothers, all are college educated, all went to school and got their degrees. So it was a sense of that we just, even though there was difficult times, and we just weren't going to allow that to stop us from continuing to pursue that goal. So that's why I consider that being graduating college. And in today's time, I don't know if that's the end all be all per se, but that was just something that we wanted to accomplish, and we set out to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, maybe it's different now, or it's changing in some ways, but that's definitely an accomplishment as far as being able to kind of break that barrier from as a first generation, and then all of your, or at least three other of your siblings doing the same. That's wonderful. And it sounds like you all had a wonderful foundation to be able to do that with your parents providing the support and the foundation that they did. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And there's generational, some people call it curses or trauma, mm-hmm. But when you have, a lot of families, all of us have family dysfunction. None of us come from a perfect upbringing. The thing that I love about, and as I say, my mother and my father, being very gifted, and my father's a very driven person. So, he worked for 40 years or more in the chemical plant, and just, one thing he would tell us, hopefully I don't, with what's experiencing today, he would be like, I want to, speak up, stand up, have your shoulders back, look a man in the eye, shake his hand, have a conviction, or have a direction for your life. And it wasn't a lot of words that he had to instill, but it basically was just that's kind of why we had this drive to, and that's not, I won't say that even my grandmothers were influential in that as well. I mean, both of them have mm-hmm. passed on, but they were very influential. And when I would see my grandmother, she would be like, how's this going? How's that going? It was a continual urge to want to, do good things, go to school or your career. They would seek those, they would kind of drop those little hints about, even though they would drop hints about, how's your love life or who you date, they would drop those, but they would drop the hints about continuing to advance and pursue your education, pursue, things that you should pursue in life. So that was even, not just, parents were tremendously influential, but also grandparents and others were as well.
That makes a big difference when you have those positive little seeds and encouragement throughout your life. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yes. So where did you end up going to college?
My undergrad, Houston Community College is where I went for community college.
Right.
And Texas Southern University is where my undergraduate bachelor's degree in political science, a minor in journalism.
Oh, okay. Is that in Houston? I'm not sure.
It is. Where it's HBCU, yes, in Houston.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. So then what were your goals in those degrees when you were in college?
The goals, it's interesting that my goal, I may still need to be a reporter, or my goal was to, I started off in computer science, and if I think about it, should have stayed with that. If I would have been a coder or an engineer or designer, would be financially lucrative, right. In that sense. But that was my undergraduate at Houston Community College. But when I got to Texas Southern, I just liked the science. I like the numbers. I've always been a numbers person, but I've liked, I guess, just like the study of politics and like the what's involved in it. So that's why political science was a major in Texas Southern. And I even have classmates. I was at a forum last week where they had a forum about if you want to run for office, and it was a group. Interestingly enough, one of the panelists was someone I went to school. We were at the same school together for around the same time. I mean, we took a class together. So I think she may have been a year after me, but she has a political consulting firm. And I was like, wow, she has a consulting firm and she does that. And I'm kind of branched out. I don't have a consulting firm. I've kind of been speaking and other things. So my goal was mainly it was more to brush up on my purpose, brush up, as far as journalism and as far as that sort of thing. That was my desire. And, I like politics, the study of it. So that's kind of how that was my goal was to, I guess at that time was to work in not just work in, but work for staff, as far as in the political field and the political arena.
Okay. Was there a particular moment or person that inspired you to be more a part of politics, or things that you were learning in high school, college that inspired you to go that direction or towards journalism? Or was it something that you kind of discovered while you were taking classes at college?
I would when you would watch the news, we had one gentleman in Houston. His name was Marvin Zindler. He had this program on Friday nights, and he would say, "This is Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News." And he had this restaurant report where he would highlight restaurants. And it was kind of unique, funny, but interesting, because some of them, he would say, "There's slime in the ice machine." And he would talk about the restaurants. Some would get good reviews. A lot of them would say, this one, you can't go to this one. They've got slime in the ice machine. They've got this. They've got that.
Wow.
And he made an impression upon me just watching different journalists, how the flair, their interactions. So that was just seeing that kind of sparked my interest into that. And then the political figures. We had a gentleman, he's now the mayor of Houston. When I was young, he ran for mayor, and he was almost about to be elected, but then there was a late commercial that kind of hurt his campaign.
Oh.
He was going to be the first black mayor of Houston. He ran, and he wasn't elected. And so that sparked my interest too, at a young age, seeing him run for office. And he ran for office again. He didn't, but then he ran for office the third time, and he was elected 8 years ago. He's term limited. Houston has term limits, so he's.
Okay.
I think this is last year now. But so that sparked my seeing those figures, and I wasn't the best. I wasn't the best or fascinated by history in high school, but I was fascinated by politics. Mm-hmm. And so, watching C-SPAN, and, I was out when I grew up. Interesting thing is that you was talking, one time my parents, they worked at my mom worked at a liquor store, but I would pick up a lot of the magazines and I would read them, and people would look at me and be like, "He's always picking up something, looking at it." So I had a fascination early on for reading and for knowledge. So those people, influenced me in that regard, just watching them, seeing them. I know I was influenced, really. I had a teacher in fifth grade who was very influential in my life, Miss Bryant. I don't know if she's still living or not. The schools that in the inner city, they didn't have they didn't have the resources like many do. They didn't have what others have, but you had dedicated and just diligent teachers and the principals in those schools. So those are some of the things that kind of influenced me, seeing these people run, him run for office very young, and then, watching different things. I remember back then there was shows like Crossfire was on CNN and see, so I would, that's kind of stuff interested me back then. I don't know if I'm as interested in it as now. It seemed like policy has gotten a lot coarser, but back then, it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And then things kind of shifted from there. And then you said that your siblings are teachers. Is that right? Are all or at least three of them are teachers?
Yes. They teach high school and middle school.
Oh, okay. Was that your experience in school where your school didn't have the resources you're saying, but the teachers were very dedicated to the students and doing what they can for them? Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have the resource. I mean, we had a park at the elementary school, Peck Elementary. There was something called Spark. There was a park that was implemented, basically an upgraded park, with facility. But the resources, the hallways, the textbooks, the materials, there was not the same level of as in a better funded school or other schools. Though the teachers stayed long, they were just They were very persistent. They stayed. They gave. Teachers do this now, but they really gave their time, and they didn't give up on us. Even if you got a bad grade one time, they kept saying you can do it. Some, not every teacher that I ran across, but they just were very, very dedicated to the craft, and they wouldn't allow, if they possibly could, you to fail.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. So even with a lack of resources and everything, the main part is that connection with an authority figure, I suppose, that believes in you and encourages you along the way, and you get some education along the way as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's I always wonder, because it can be like that I know it's like that in the Seattle area too, but I know there's so much I don't know about it, but how does one district, even if it's two schools in the same district, have different resources? It kind of is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, the Houston Independent School District. There was even a recent study that said about 800 teachers were not returning back, and teachers, for many years and still now are underpaid and
right.
Have the challenges of teaching. But also in the inner city school, with the, fundamental inequity already, on top of, less funding, students, come from backgrounds that are not, they come from challenged backgrounds already coming into the school system. So and then also, you have the challenges of special education and students being placed in there, and especially, that's a whole different discussion about special education and how that affects minority kids. And so there's a lot of challenges, but that come to just education in the inner city as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you said that one of your siblings is autistic, so I imagine you may have a deeper understanding of that as well, as far as what your sibling might have gone through in education. Or my husband also works with students that have more needs than others as well. So I imagine
yes, definitely. I applaud his work, and I just applaud being on your podcast. I was going to say that. I don't know if I didn't say that. I applaud being on your platform to share, and the work that with autistic children. I have that is something that definitely anyone who does it is to be applauded. The patience, the skill is definitely needed.
Yeah, and it seems like it's hard. It can be hard to find people who have those skills and have that patience. And it can be a up and down kind of thing. Some days are pleasant and low key, and other days are a little more volatile, depending on not even the student. Sometimes it could be the systems in place or the people that are around them, and it can be very difficult. But so after your time at college, what did you move on to do with your degree?
Do I say?
Was there a little winding road to what you're doing now?
The winding road is kind of how it is. But I went into marketing and sales. And I started out with a company I started out telemarketing, and I thought I would never do this, offering a credit card to business. And we had a dialer, we would call people. But for some reason, I was able to stay in that role for 8 months. A lot of times people, you have something like that, people, 1 week they're gone, 2 days, say, I'm getting out of this. I can't deal with this. I can't deal with people hanging up, telling me not to call them, cursing me out, all of this stuff. But for some reason, I was able to, stay in that environment. And even while I was in college, and getting my degree, I was working, and then I worked for the nonprofit, the Better Business Bureau. And so I think the skills, even though the degree is not directly related to my career, the training and the courses and the meeting deadlines, other things that it helped me to excel in sales and marketing. and work for the BBB and be a top representative. I mean, I was the number one gentleman that they had as far as production for years. So, going to school for 6 years, undergrad, and then doing the community college route, that helped me tremendously as far as my personal career, work career. So even though, I had someone tell me recently, they said, well, you should be a teacher myself. They said, you should teach. And also I don't, it's a program that is ending though, but I volunteer, I mentor at a high school in the area. So what I learned in college has helped me with mentoring young people and other in that regard also.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it happens so often where you go to college and then, the thing you end up doing later is maybe completely different than what you had originally thought or what you were going for. And yeah, you get so much more out of college than just the degree. And so that makes a lot of sense. You said the program that you're currently mentoring with is ending soon, or?
Well, as of, I guess, budget cuts, I'm a volunteer. And the program has been around for 4 years in the Houston Independent. It's a program that mentors young men, Ascending to Men program. But we got a message, I guess it's not coming back for the next school year because of budgetary reasons.
That's too bad. Hopefully something else can be opened up or started. Yeah, budgets and nonprofits, that can be a little bit hard, depending. That's too bad. So what are you up to now? I know you're a motivational speaker and you do the mentoring that you do, and you talked about the sales work that you do. So what's your world now?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the world of motivational speaking, teaching. For some reason, I don't know. I'm not a licensed clinical social worker, but I've been doing mental health presentations. I did one for a university last month, and then also recently for a church, and then a virtual summit. So basically, that's what I've been, speaking to colleges when I get the chance to speak to young people about goal setting, about leadership, about resilience, and in between also working virtually, working as an online sales consultant. That's kind of what I'm doing now. I was a part of a book that was an Amazon bestseller, Still I Thrive. It was 24 stories. 20 authors came together talking about pivoting and evolving after COVID and what people would need to do, or some stories, how you pivot and how you evolve after that challenge. So as a part of that book, there's some universities that are still using it or have ordered it. And so that's kind of where I am. I'm looking to do more with high schools, middle schools, as far as speaking, consulting. And I haven't just, I've spoken for social and emotional learning. Long Island University have Harmony SEL, social and emotional learning. And I've spoken on kindness, spoken on for those organizations on certain topics like that as well. So I speak, I inspire, that's what I do.
What inspired you to speak on mental health or any of the topics that you speak to colleges or high schools about?
Well, being a first generation student, but also personal challenges that I've had, personal setbacks and failures. And that's one of the things I even mentioned, which you consider a failure in the book. In the chapter that I'm in the book. And so those are things that kind of drive me to continue to push forward, to not be a statistic, to not be someone that is looked down upon, but to continue to grow. So I use those things that have happened in life, the bad things, to propel me for better things, to propel me for doing, greater things. So that's kind of why I speak on, whether it be mental health, because of challenges I've had. I wouldn't say I've been clinically depressed, but we've had, life is not fair. Life is not easy a lot of times. And so I've dealt with issues and others. And so I speak from that experience of not being licensed in that, but speaking from personal experience but not only that, but just leadership speeches and kindness, resilience. It's just not that. Different types of talks that I speak to and address.
You mentioned not being a statistic. What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, when you come from a certain environment, when you come from, and I'm not, when you come, sometimes people will think, and I'm not going to say that I grew up around drugs but I was close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And to be African American male in your 40s, most people believe that if you're African American black male, certain age, you have to have a number of children, you've got to have this, you've got to do this, you've got to be in a certain, and so when I say that, meaning that not being a statistic of stereotyped as less than, or in that sense, when I say statistic, in prison, wanting to have better out of, be greater in spite of the adversity, in spite of the ills that are in society. We know there are ills, we just came upon a shooting in a supermarket. So we know that there's problems in society. We know that there's race problems, there's gender problems, but in spite of that, still wanting to excel even in the midst of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And not allowing that to be where, to take being, parents separated at an early age, to be where I'm going to follow in those footsteps. It's a story I read. I don't know if it's a true story or a story in a book, but it was said that two men had a father who was an alcoholic, and one of them was like, he's determined not to be an alcoholic because his father was a drunk, and the other just said he was going to be because his father was that way. Like one allowed that situation to affect him to be where he followed in his dad's footsteps, and the other said, because of that, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something else.
Right. Yeah. So kind of deliberately making a choice one way or the other. Well, maybe the one that followed in the footsteps maybe didn't make such a deliberate choice potentially, but yeah. 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 That makes sense. Thanks for explaining that. So then you also mentioned the social emotional learning part. So what is that all about? And is that how you approach when you go and mentor and all that?
Yeah, well, that's some of the program, because I'm not the gentleman who asked me to be a part with Violent.
Right.
When we talk about different things with the young people, whether self-care. A lot of it was dealing with scholarships and wanting them to have access to knowing about scholarships to go to college and not being in debt. So a lot of focus was on scholarships and their goals and their plans after. But we talk about self-care, mental health. So some of that dealt with that piece in the school system. So, partnering with this university, a couple of times I've talked about kindness and citizenship. So I do approach it sometimes from that social emotional learning aspect of my presentations. I kind of tailor it somewhat to that. From that aspect sometimes.
Yeah. And can you explain a little bit about what that approach is versus maybe some other approach, I guess?
Yeah, that's more of an empathetic, I don't want to say it's a buzzword, more of a concerned, compassionate type approach. Because social emotional learning, because of trauma, the kids and race trauma and other trauma that they've been affected by, when you have teachers and consultants and educators, if you bring that approach in, that can help, that helps students out when they feel they're able to learn better, they're able to because when you understand of what they've faced already and what they're dealing with and going through, dealing with broken homes, dealing with inequity in society, race inequity, other inequity, dealing with that. So when you take this social emotional learning, you take this compassionate, empathetic type approach versus when I was in school, it was both as it used to be where, like someone, if they lose a loved one and it's like they had an assignment that's due. If you have a compassionate approach, one person may say, well, you only got 12 hours to do it. Well, another person would say, take, the time you need to grieve and then get your paper into me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, it's more of a understanding, not that you're lowering standards or lowering the bar, but you're just more of an understanding approach to dealing with learning and dealing with educating.
That makes a lot of sense. Kind of seeing more of the whole picture of a person rather than compartmentalizing. Here's school. You got to focus on this. This is the most important.
We want this assignment due now. You're going to get it to us, whatever. It's not understanding. And then just affecting from a more kind approach and from just a more of a whole, like you said, not compartmentalizing, but from a whole perspective when you engage with students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there students that you've worked with that you've seen? I guess I haven't asked you, how long have you been working with students in this way? Have you seen a big change in them? What's that? Sorry.
Yeah, the students have said, I last week, they've talked about, a couple of them have talked about how they've grown since they've been in the program. They've learned, and they're you see more of some of the young men who wouldn't look at, they kind of look down when they're talking, but now they look up. So you see some changes and some growth in the young men in the program. I've only been in the program for a year and 4 months. The program has existed for 4 years, but there's been growth. The young men have developed. You have young men going to college who are getting scholarships, who are and applying, and they didn't know about these things. I didn't know about them when I was in high school, but they know about this, and they're taking the knowledge of what they've learned and using it to better themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And just having some support and a group or an organization making the extra effort to make sure that more young people know what's available to them and helping them along that path. That's huge.
Yes, definitely. Wonderful. Yeah, it's very needed. I believe. Yeah, I don't want to get off track because it's a talk of budgets and budgetary, but I think the program has made a tremendously positive difference. I think it's a tremendous loss for the district, but I don't know, how they're going to reevaluate that, but we'll see on how that will go.
Yeah, hopefully it's something that can be reformed or returned in some way at some point. Yeah, hopefully. Was there a specific story that you wanted to make sure that, or thing that you wanted to mention? I asked you this ahead of time, and now I'm not sure if we got to that or not already.
Well, I think we've covered tremendous ground. I thank you for the time. I mentioned that Still I Thrive is it's on Amazon, but you can order it from me. You can find me on any platforms on social media. I'm just going about as I can to be a positive difference and make a difference in the world and what I do. So I have that's what I'm just seeking out to do and then trying to do to be that light, to be that difference, to be that person that just helps someone. Because I know if it wasn't for people that believed in me, and saw potential in me, I don't know where I would be. So I want to help somebody else if I can spark something in them to want to do something great and do something powerful.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Before we wrap up, I would love to hear, I know you spoke about your influences in a way when we were talking about your family, but do you have a particular influence from when you were growing up or in your work now that comes to mind?
From the working with the Sending to Men program with the school, at the high school, and working with the gentleman who's over the program, just that brings me joy. And also when I see how my brother, he was referenced as Teacher of the Year, but when I see my brother and how he works with young people, it's an influence and seeing how he interacts with them, that really brings about. It helps me, even though he's younger than me. His birthday's coming up is actually a week away from now. It's next week. Yeah, I would say working at the school, volunteering at the school, seeing the young people, their faces, their interaction, them opening up and sharing. That's an influence. And also, people that I at the universities that I've spoken to, that brings about a sense of, really helps me as well.
That's great. Yeah. Kind of a purpose to continue to strive for. Yeah.
Yeah, just seeing the interaction, when I've seen the interaction with them, seeing their what it does. I mean, I have to be honest. Not every presentation I've had has been well received. Almost a lot of them have, but I remember one year, last year, they get a feedback form for the presentation, and one of the things that was said was like he wasn't prepared. I said that I didn't pronounce people's names. But I got I've got several feedback from different organizations. And one of them asked me to speak for their organization again this year. And it was saying your presentation was one of our highest reviewed and highest rated and great feedback. But that one bad assessment kind of drives me to just give more and do more. So I don't know if that's an influence, but it's just kind of like the experiences the things that happen in the times that either I dropped the ball or people perceive I dropped the ball, it pushes me to really continue to do better and do more.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense as an influence because you get feedback. Yeah, it seems like for better or for worse, the maybe the negative feedback that you receive can stick with you longer depending on what it is. And so there's probably a balance between like assessing it and, okay, is this really what happened, or is this maybe they had a bad day or something? But also, that's great. I mean, I think that's important to keep in your brain as far as like, how can I do better next time? Continually striving to do better and better, and taking that feedback when it makes sense. So yeah, I mean, there's always that balance. But yeah, it's funny how that works, where those things just stick in your head.
One of the things that with these organizations, Trio or Upward Bound, a lot of times if you present, a lot of speakers they have their own survey. They ask the participants for feedback using a certain type of survey form. A lot of times they will give a survey to the participants to say, what did you learn? What's your feedback on the presenter that presented? So you're evaluated. It's just not something you just do without any feedback. You're evaluating on what you do.
That's important. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So they have Trio and Upward Bound in Texas as well. I guess I was assuming that was a statewide thing in Washington, but I guess that's nationwide. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, especially with colleges or schools, they want to evaluate, who do we have back? Was this subject something that the students appreciated, or this or that or the other thing? I imagine that happens with everything there.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Let's see. On your horizon, what are you looking forward to the most?
Looking forward to vacation.
Oh.
If I can find somewhere to go.
Okay, so it's in planning.
If it doesn't, if we don't, if we thought we were going out of the pandemic. So looking forward to vacation and then just speaking and speaking to colleges, and then continuing to grow myself, personally grow, and continuing so that I can help others.
Wonderful. And before we started, you mentioned your wife and I have the same name. When did you all meet?
We'll 10 years in June.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you. If she puts up with me till then.
Oh, yeah. Just a few more weeks left. How'd you all meet?
We met through a sister. We were introduced by my sister. We connected.
Oh, that's great.
And then, because my sister was at a graduation for her mom, and they were in the same state. My sister was getting her master's. Well, my sister was in Lubbock, Texas. Her mom was in Lubbock as well at the time. And so they met. She said, about, are you not there? Are you seeing anybody? My brother, she kind of, then we met, we talked, and we kind of took it from there.
Wow. So your sister's the matchmaker, huh? That's great.
Yeah, I work for a company that's a matchmaking firm, but my sister was the matchmaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. What company is that? Or what do you do for that company?
I'm an online sales, Angie.com, I'm an online sales consultant.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. That's awesome. Well, is there anything else did we miss anything? I know we'll have a link for Still I Thrive in our show notes and also where people can find you as well. But is there anything else you'd like to highlight?
They can find me. I had an Instagram account, but then it was taken down. So I have to redo that for some, but, I don't know if it was gotten into with it, but I mean, they can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or email. I mean, I'll, when I'm going somewhere, when I'm presenting, I'll let it be known.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, hopefully folks will find you and look forward to seeing your Instagram pop up when it does and direct people to your other spots.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed the moment. It's a gentleman that I know, he likes to make that expression. He said I've enjoyed the moment. I've enjoyed the time. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your platform, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you joining me today. It's been wonderful to hear your story, and I look forward to sharing it with everyone. And Kelvin, thanks for joining me. Thank you for joining us for Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories. Connect with us on social media. We are at Take Notice Podcast. You can also find us at www.takenoticepodcast.org. And if you're interested in being a guest, please reach out. You can email us at takenoticepodcast@gmail.com. Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories is produced, hosted, and edited by Allison Preisinger-Heggins. Music by Version Big 5 featuring Darius Heggins. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for taking notice.
For it is up to us to thank.